Could you expand on it? What do you mean intellectual game?
I mean, this is a generalizing statement. It's certainly not true for everybody, and etc. But sometimes I get the impression that people in tournaments or in fencing use the dagger as a sort of get out of jail free card. But they make a stupid attack with a rapier, not covering lines, etc., and hoping to defend themselves with the dagger there. And when you're playing with a single rapier, you kind of have this one weapon, this rapier, this sword, that has to be your protection, that has to close the line, that has to keep you safe, and that has to hit your opponent at the same time. So kind of it's you have to really get it right, and you have less space to fudge in as you do with a dagger that can maybe kind of save you.
Okay. So did you also, I mean, try? I think the next move for you would be small sword, right? After being in love with rapier, right?
I've looked at small sword every now and then. Just doesn't draw me the same way. I've kind of skipped over the small sword step and started playing around with the Italian derived or Italian dueling saber of the early 20th century. Picked up some really interesting Dutch books also on them, because they are affordable on secondhand bookshops sites. But I never got enough time to really focus on that and really get into it.
Okay, then I don't need to ask you if you have ever fought in armor, right? Because if you're not interested in earlier weapons, what type of armor, right?
I at some point I owned a full reproduction-ish 13th century knight kit, actually. So I had a gambazon, I had the padded hose, I had the chainmail leg protectors, the full chainmail coat down to the knee and down to the wrists, big helmet, chainmail coif with mouth flap, coat of plate, so a fabric coat with steel plates on the inside. I had all of that because we were doing show fights as well in costume. So I did play around a little bit in 13th century armor, at least. But I sold it all to buy more rapiers.
Oh, okay. I just want to ask what you did. Okay, so you sold it to buy more rapiers. How many rapiers do you have, if I may ask? Yeah, I'm just looking at it.
I mean, I have, this is a very nice Danelli. That is my regular use one.
Do you mind to show our viewers some of these rapiers? One of them or two of them?
Yeah, of course. So this is my regular favorite. It's a Marco Danelli.
Marco,
you can't really see it. He's got some nice engravings on the cup there.
Yeah.
And this was made based on the illustrations in Bruchius. So the rapiers in Bruchius, they have a very short cross and a very shallow cup. Usually this cup comes down to the cross, but it's a bit different here.
Yeah.
And a nice thick false ricasso, which really helps gripping.
Yeah.
So this was made by Marco based on these illustrations and some real ones. And I've used this one a lot, and I still like it a lot.
Yeah, I met him a couple of times in events in Italy. Okay.
And here, one I've been playing with recently as well. I've got my magnets here, but it doesn't work perfectly. So this is a Pavel Moch made this one, and they asked me to review. Who made it?
Excuse me?
Pavel Moch, the Czechian maker.
Okay, I don't know him. Okay.
They're more known from reenactment swords, but he worked together with Martin Fabian a few times to develop some swords, I understand. So they asked me if I wanted to review one. So yeah, of course I said yes. And they sent me this thing, and it's really nice. It's quite heavy, but well balanced. So it's a pleasure to use, and it fits a bit more with the weapon shown in the Pasha book, or at least the other one, because the Pasha book itself doesn't have illustrations. So I've been playing around a bit more with this one. And then, let's see, over here we've got some dark woods that I used to play with before I got to Danelli. This is my first rapier, actually, on my cup hilt. I still use it as a loaner quite a lot, and it still works. So I guess I got lucky and I got one of the good ones. And 2 more dark wood economy ones that I bought back when I was teaching in the Netherlands as loaner weapons. And this is also a Danelli. This one is based on an Italian foil, rapier foil in the collection of I forgot his name, Roberto Gotti. So Roberto Gotti posted some pictures once of this this foil, 17th century foil, and I asked Marco to make me a copy of that. The reason I got this is that it was this weapon was shown in another book that I was looking at the time, and it's very light, but it's excellent for teaching because people can see your hand position, they can see what you're doing with your hand, whereas with the other rapiers that's hidden by the cup. And I also use it a lot for loaners for new students because it's so light that it makes it a bit easier for them to work with.
Very interesting. Okay, thank you for sharing us these things. Just one more question. Haven't you trained in any striking martial arts? No. Okay. Just okay. Then judo, and then you came to
Taekwondo a little bit after judo, but that was around 8 years old or so. So that's not something I really think influenced me much.
Okay. Just the last question I have is, what are your plans? Yeah, go ahead.
Of course, I don't know how I forgot this, but after I got into him, I spent 2 or 3 years studying Kalashnikov Sistema with the Russian guy in Amersfoort in the Netherlands, which was really
interesting. Tell us about that. What is who was that? Which kind of Sistema did you do?
Kalashnikov.
So, yeah, of course. Okay.
So the instructor was Maxim Pipocha, if I remember correctly, and he was taught directly by Kalashnikov himself. He said, it's the story I've been told is that Kalashnikov was an engineer, and he learned various martial arts and then looked at them as an engineer and took out the principles and started working with principles rather than techniques. When I got into it, some people told me it was a good class and I should check it out, so I figured I would. And I decided, you know what, if because I looked up Sistema on the internet and you see a lot of wild claims. There's some people calling themselves Sistema, so I'm like, okay, if I get these wild claims thrown at me, I want to be a guinea pig, and if they can make it work, then I'll have to completely change my life view and start believing in things I don't believe in. And if they don't work, then that's the last time they'll be at that class. Very simple. But there were never any wild claims about influencing people's bodies without touching them or anything. And what I got instead was a class really focused on body mechanics and on seeing how to analyze a situation in a fight and work from there. So what we did most of the time was start with a position, a starting position. So maybe your partner grabs 1 or 2 of your wrists, or maybe it's a punch. And then Maxim would show a bunch of ways to deal with that situation, just different things. And then we would be free to work on it. So you go off with a partner, start in that starting position, and then you just try things. And it was focused on doing things slowly and not using force. So for me, it was very helpful in that it taught me how to analyze a situation, how to think. I can't really think when it's at speed, of course, but how to process what's going on and find ways to work with that. So I found it a very interesting class to be with for a while.
Just so one more question. Am I correct to say that the HEMA scene in Nordic countries is very strong? Like in all...
It's very tournament focused.
I mean, there are many people practicing. Oh, tournament focused, okay.
It's very tournament focused. And within that Contacts there are quite good. Especially Sweden has a very strong presence in tournaments and lots of very good tournament fighters, which makes them makes the Nordic countries very visible. Finland as well. In Norway, it's all a bit smaller.
Okay. Okay. Do you take part in tournaments as well? Tournaments?
Not as much as maybe I should, from time to time. But a lot of the tournaments here, if they do rapier, it's rapier and dagger, which is not so much my interest. But if I'm at an event with a nice tournament, I usually force myself to get into it. So the last event I was at where they had a tournament, I think was the International Rapier Seminar in Copenhagen, and there they had a single rapier tournament, a rapier and dagger tournament, and a mixed rapier and any sidearm from a narrow range that you want to try. I entered the last one, the rapier and mixed, and I went in with single rapier. Had a good time.
Okay. Have you ever tried the Spanish system of rapier, destreza?
I've tried it in the sense that I've had many people opposite me using it, and I've tried it in the sense that I once organized a weekend workshop with David Rawlings, who taught us T-bow. So that's destreza-based system, which some people say is destreza, some people say it's not destreza. He trained under destreza masters, but then changed things to what he thought was better.
Everyone has an opinion, right? As usual, or of course. Okay.
As usual, nothing ever changes.
Okay. Would you like to add something or tell our viewers what are your future plans and what are you for historical fencing or whatever? Would you like to just tell our viewers?
Well, again, before Corona hit, because that's always it's a big change in how things are done. But before that, I started focusing on how to be a better instructor. So I have the impression I can hold my own with a sword, but now I want to be better at making other people good with a sword. So been working on that. Just before all the restrictions came in last year, I went to an event in the US organized by David Koblenz and Dory Koblenz, and they come from an old Italian fencing lineage around Sonoma State University, and in this workshop they taught not so much how to fence, but how to teach according to that lineage, to that system. And that was very interesting. So I've been working a little bit with the things I learned there.
Which university? Did I understand you correctly? It was a university program, you said?
The fencing program was aligned to a university, but the event that they organized was not at the time. Okay. So I think the program is located at Sonoma State University, I think.
Okay.
So yeah, that's one thing I'm working on, how to be a better teacher. I'm also very interested in how fencing was taught back in the 17th century, and trying to grasp from these works that we have how fencing may have been taught at that time, and if we can bring that back a little bit more.
Could you explain more? What do you mean exactly with that?
Well, I mean, more than martial arts training, it's often influenced a lot by I don't know where it comes from, but it's always in a group with the instructor showing something and then the people going off and doing it. But if you look at that, at statements made here and there in fencing treatises, you get the impression there was more one-on-one instruction, okay, maybe in the past. And if you look also at, for example, these early 20th century, late 19th century saber treatises, not the military ones, but the dueling saber ones, there's also some talk on how students practice with the master or in the presence of the master with a selected student, etc., before going into a group defense. And this may fit, yeah, with some of the impressions we get from that I get, at least from fencing treatises, etc., that maybe people would study with their fencing master, buy a fencing class, and then eventually be experienced enough to go and spar with the other students. So I'm exploring that, and of course this is still how fencing is taught a lot by modern Olympic fencing masters sometimes as well, I think. So that's what I'm working with, getting an impression on how these private lessons go now, how they may have gone in the past, and how this changes how people learn fencing.
Excellent. That's a very nice approach. I mean, I like it. Could you tell us about your publications in the field, books, articles on historical fencing? You have a book, and could you tell us more about others if you have? So, because viewers obviously are interested in these things.
I have a few books. I published a number of translations. I have a website, www.bruchius.com or www.enze@mente.com. I did a number of translations of smaller works that I just put on my website for free. At some point, I published a number of books with Fallen Rook with Keith Farrell, and then I decided to just move into self-publishing. So I've then published a number of translations myself as well.
Reinier, introduce some of your books to us, please.
Yeah, okay.